Hello, welcome back to Marathon Man, where I'm going through Doctor Who from the very beginning, and you join me just as we're about to begin the fourth Doctor's era. But before that, there's the small matter of ranking all 24 of the third Doctor's TV stories. As with the last two ranking videos I did, it's worth pointing out that the five Doctors, for the purposes of this marathon, is obviously a fifth Doctor story and so will not be appearing in this list. This will be my ranking, worst to best, of the TV stories between Spearhead from Space and Planet of the Spiders. And just like those previous two rankings, there are some surprises here for me, and not just in terms of a change of opinion on stories. It's just that it's only when I come to do these videos that I have a look to see how the stories have been stacked up against each other. And what this doesn't always make clear is the gulf between some of them. So for example, after finishing a story on the marathon, I duly slot it into place on the ranking list for the whole show. But then, when I come time to seeing what the third Doctor era rankings look like, I take away the first and the second Doctor stories, and so, in some instances, I'm removing that gulf. So, a couple of stories right next to each other here may suggest that they occupy a similar space in my estimations, but that isn't always true. Sometimes the gap between them is immense. But you didn't come here for all this, you came here for a ranking, so let's get into it. Number 24, The Monster of Peladon. Yep, it's recently been and gone, and while it didn't leave as bad a smell this time around, it's still resolutely bottom of the pile for me. A dull, uninspired rehash of a far better story. This does nothing to justify a return visit to Peladon and simply repeats some good bits and inexplicably jettisons others, while at the same time extending the length. No. Number 23, The Mind of Evil. This will likely ruffle some feathers, but I have to refer back to what I said earlier about gulfs between episodes. Monster of Peladon is way at the bottom. Yeah, okay, this one also received 2 stars from me, so technically it's the same rating, but there is a big difference between only just scraping 2 stars, as with Monster, and just missing out on 3, as with this one. Number 22, Death to the Daleks. Now, why this one just edges Mind of Evil for me is the largest problem I have with Mind of Evil is the Doctor himself. Whereas here, that's just not the case. Partnered with the adorable Bel-Al, Pertwee valiantly battles against another dull rehash featuring monsters he wasn't keen on, to emerge from it the hero that he is. Number 21, Terror of the Autons. Another one which will likely be outrageously low for some, but while introducing a wonderful Roger Delgado and a magnificent Katie Manning, this story is just too ugly. But if I were rating it purely on that, it'd be at the bottom, which it isn't. There is still some great stuff here. Okay, yeah, mainly Roger Delgado and Katie Manning. Number 20, The Mutants. Okay, so this one hasn't got subtext, it's just got text. And it has some very shonky guest performances alongside some occasionally immature scripting. But Pertwee, Manning and Hollis as Sondergaard are all so brilliant that they definitely take the taste away from a lot of the rubbish. This actually fared better on this marathon than last time, and I credit the 3 of them for that. Number 19, Day of the Daleks. A big return for the Daleks after 5 years away, a chance for the third Doctor to finally face the show's biggest baddies after 2 whole seasons, and they're just not that great. The story itself is far stronger, and Anna Barry as Anat is a superlative guest star, but the whole thing suffers from accommodating the Daleks, and the Daleks suffer from being stuffed into a pre-existing plot that didn't have them in it initially. It's a shame for both, really. Number 18, Planet of the Daleks. Had they not returned in Day of the Daleks the previous year, and this had been their big return, or at least their surprise appearance at the end of Frontier in Space, then this would have likely been a far better return for the Daleks after a prolonged absence. The repeated beats of Nation's script would have taken on a far more dreamily nostalgic vibe than they do here, and there is definitely a hint of that anyway. Also contains a contender for moment of the whole show so far.
It's being afraid and doing what you have to do anyway.
Number 17, Planet of the Spiders. The Third Doctor's swan song is most definitely a game of two halves for me. The thread of rebirth and renewal fits a regeneration story like a glove, and it's no wonder that a lot of regeneration stories look back to this story for certain elements, not least the term regeneration itself. Where it falls down is its too languid a pace at the beginning, and the chase sequence in part 2 tips over, way over, into self-indulgence. Number 16, The Time Monster. The amount of stories underneath this one, and then here it shows up at number 16, might imply I've gone mad to some people, but this story really isn't as bad as people make out. It's got an excellent turn by Delgado, one of his best, and there's an emphasis on silly, which just about works, as well as saving some unfortunate effects like Kronos itself. It's very underrated in my opinion. Number 15, The Claws of Axos, or where Season 8 clicked into place for me. Great from the beginning, Delgado really settles in as a regular here, and the Doctor gets to showcase some excellent, pointed and targeted moral outrage. While we're still in the lower half of the list, we passed the point of above average a little while ago. Number 14, Spearhead from Space. Because look, there's no way this one is just average or below, and the fact that it's at my number 14 goes to show how much I've come round to the Third Doctor's era in recent years, and how much I enjoyed it on this marathon. I still wouldn't quite say that this story is the classic that its reputation suggests that it is, but it does get the Third Doctor's tenure off to a cracking start. Number 13, Colony in Space. The Third Doctor's first trip off-world is stewarded by Malcolm Hulke, who takes the spacefaring nature of Doctor Who and bends that to his own perspective, and it results in a really interesting kind of Doctor Who story, strangely nostalgic in its otherworldly setting, but thoroughly in keeping with the new era's sensibilities. Number 12, The Three Doctors. Okay. The presence of Hartnell and Troughton alone is not enough to just automatically award this perfect status. It is beyond joyous to see them both again, wistfully frustrating to have Hartnell's role so necessarily reduced, but nevertheless wonderful to have him back. It's strong Doctor Who, don't get me wrong, but this era is so rich with strong storytelling that this kind of falls short in certain areas. It's still one hell of a birthday party though. Number 11, Invasion of the Dinosaurs. One of Doctor Who's hidden gems. It is hidden behind the unfortunate dinosaurs themselves, but get past those and this is one of the very best plots a Doctor Who story has ever had. It does interesting things with the earthbound setting with some of the regulars and further strengthens the bond between the Doctor and his new companion throughout proceedings. Quite possibly Hulk's best script. And now we're in to the top 10. Number 10, The Ambassadors of Death. That Season 7 gets 3/4 of its stories and far more of its episodes into the top 10 speaks to its strength at kicking off a new era. Sure, some may expect Spearhead in there in place of this one, but I think Ambassadors of Death is yet a further story which thumbs its nose at the idea that Doctor Who in one time and one place need be repetitive. Number 9, Frontier in Space. Tensions between Earth and Draconia underpin this to give it some real suspense alongside Baddens on either side, as well as the fire being stoked by the Master before a surprise reappearance of the Daleks. A really well told, well put together story. Number 8, The Curse of Peladon. Unprecedented use of an existing Doctor Who monster which isn't just there as a cheap twist but which also drives the plot forward, as well as thoughtful political allegory and some of the most alien creature design the show has yet seen, and The Curse of Peladon has an impact on several levels, nestled in the middle of this Doctor's run. Number 7, The Demons. Boy have I gone on a journey with this story. Once I couldn't bear it, and now I see it for the classic that it is, and we are in classic territory now. From this point on, each story got the full 5 stars. Excellent use of the Doctor and the regulars, another fantastic turn from Delgado, and the sprinkling of black magic gives this a gorgeous atmosphere. Number 6. The Time Warrior. The introduction of the Sontarans, the first appearance of Sarah Jane Smith, and the Third Doctor's most substantial step into Earth's history all combine to make for a fantastic romp. Because it is overtly framed as a funny one, Holmes not just peppered his script with jokes, but he almost seemed to build it out of them. Number 5. Carnival of Monsters. Same with this one, really. The 3 Doctors may have had actual appearances from the first 2 Doctors, but this one feels like the show really looking inward at itself, with some brilliant introspection and interesting conclusions reached. Entertaining on a superficial level, but also decent Doctor Who brain food as well. Number 4. Doctor Who and the Silurians. Shooting its shot with an excellently subversive idea in terms of the new earthbound constraints imposed on the show, and the result is one of Doctor Who's very best ideas. The concept of the Silurians is gold standard, and the realisation here lives up to it, with some strong guest performances along the way from Geoffrey Palmer and Peter Miles. Number 3. The Green Death. The most affecting and effective companion departure in the show up until this point. Jo leaves the Doctor after a well-paced and clever story, which also has some brilliant monsters in there, both Boss and the Maggots, creating indelible images for decades. But the one which always sticks with me is Jo's farewell to the Doctor, easily the emotional high point of the whole first 11 seasons. Number 2. The Sea Devils. The more streamlined, more action-packed sequel to the Silurians, and the extra ingredient of the Master alongside truly loathsome characters like Trenchard and Walker, bolstered by assistance from the Navy in filming and a genuinely unusual score. This one is one of the most identifiable stories in all of Doctor Who. Superb stuff. Number 1. Inferno. Regular viewers will have seen this coming, given that it has topped the top 10 story list each season since its turn came. Not only Season 7's high point, but also the Third Doctor's high point. More so than the first 2 rankings, I think this might be the one where I differ the most from general consensus. I mean, yeah, sure, Inferno is routinely regarded as one of the Third Doctor's very best, if not the best, so there will be ones where I don't exactly go too far off the beaten track, but I usually see the Time Monster way down, and to have Terror of the Autons that near the bottom might be enough to get me sectioned. As ever, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed shouting at the screen that I'm certifiable for not liking The Mind of Evil, then you know how YouTube works. Please do hit the like thumb and share it around. I would be super grateful. And what does your list look like compared to mine? Are we vaguely along the same lines, or is mine too top heavy with Silurians and too bottom heavy with Daleks? Is Season 7 disproportionately represented higher up in the list? And have I been too hard on Season 11? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you back here soon for some thoughts on the Third Doctor himself before we dive into the Fourth Doctor's era. So, if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button, clang the cloister bell, and I will see you soon.